Hi, this is Lauren Lester, and you're listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
This is Kevin Conroy, and I am the goddamn Batman.
It's been 5 years, and the Geekcast Radio Network would like to give back to you. How, you may ask? Well, first of all, we're coming up with a brand new website to be launched June 1st, 2014. In addition to that, there'll be many new features for interactive abilities. So how do you enter into this magical celebration? Well, Geekcast Radio has a contest where you can win some awesome prizes, ranging from comics, Blu-rays, DVDs, trade paperbacks, and comics, and more. How do you enter? Write in your favorite stories of how the Geekcast Radio Network has affected you in the last 5 years, and how it's unleashed the geek in you. You can also enter by writing reviews on our shows on iTunes. For more information, visit www.geekcastradio.com and click on the banner. So until next time, unleash the geek in you. Welcome to The Pullback. Join us as we dig out our latest comics and discuss them with a rotating panel of the GCRN crew. So sit back and enjoy this week's Pullback.
I give the punchlines around here. Got it?
Hello and welcome to The Pullback. This is episode 75. I find it absolutely hilarious. I've gotten one podcast at 75 episodes before the flagship show, Geekcast Radio. That'll be rectified later this year, though, because GCR will most definitely hit 100 episodes before December 31st. Anyway, we are here to talk about Batman, the goddamn Batman. This is our Batman 75th anniversary month of coverage here in the Pullbag. As I've said in the past 5 episodes, it's more than that. From episodes 68 to 74, I said that, 13 episodes, 1 month. Yes, I know I'm crazy and I'm driving people nuts with content, but hey, they can download it at their leisure. I'm, of course, TF2 Mike. Joining me is Steve Megatron. Hello.
Hello.
Doug Abel from Talking About My Generation. Hello.
Hello, sir.
And Jeremy Fein, who wears an outskirt.
I thought I was Batman's psychotic obsession.
Oh, God. It's going to be a long night, ladies and gentlemen.
No, it won't. You double-scheduled.
No, it's not going to be a long night because of that. It's going to be a long night for all the second-rate Joker impressions.
Okay, I promise I won't do my Joker impression.
Alright, so...
be better.
Did you say Smeagol? What the hell?
Malprocess.
Oh, God.
Hey, it's either that or Marvin the Martian. Take your pick.
Yeah.
Well, it could be that, or he could be winning.
Oh, God, no. Batman versus Charlie Sheen. Batman would kick his drunk ass.
Depends on what you're talking about.
A fist fight. Batman would beat the living crap out of Charlie Sheen.
Depends on what kind of fisting he's doing.
Oh, God.
All right.
Okay.
See, that goes to show you any podcast can be turned bad.
Yeah, this is not the Beast Unleashed podcast. We do not need tentacle porn and Megatron spreading his DNA all over people.
Yeah. Let's move on before I get up on Jeremy. Okay.
Did you just call him Ron Jeremy? Wow, that's even worse. Okay, so you find people might be wondering, why are they doing an overall Batman topic show again? Well, 2 years ago for Batman's 73rd anniversary, Steve and I held a Bat Week, where I had several blogs, Steve did several blogs, Terror the Rising Star, one of our other staff members did several blogs, and we did Geekcast Radio episode 39. And in that episode, it was 3.5 hours of Bat Talk. This will not be that. Since the Pullbag is a comic book discussion and review show, we're going to hit on the other parts of media first, very briefly, and then we're going to talk about Batman and comics. So this is going to be a more focused episode. Not that that wasn't, but that covered everything. The toys, the games, the video games, the board games, the horrible lunch boxes at times, a lot of Batmite stuff and everything else. So that's not what this is here. I just hope that Steve's Batwave communicator holds out.
Yeah.
I think he was sent back to Arkham.
Good place for him. All right, so here's how we're going to be running this down. We're going to be talking about Batman's origin story. Actually, it's funny that we'll be taking a break here in a moment, but JT from Saskatoon is also getting in on this because he gave us the Batman Just the Facts, and he kind of goes over the origin story himself. After that, we'll talk about Batman in television and film, Batman in animation, music of the Bat, and those wonderful Bat toys. Now, you notice that I left video games off of that simply because of the fact that I have not played any of the Arkham games. I've not played any of the current ones. I don't have a... Well, excuse me, you want to go out and buy me a next-gen console or buy the games for my computer? Go ahead. I'm not spending money on video games. I already spend too much damn money on comics to do this podcast. Give me... jerk. Man, I swear, between Californians and Canadians, I can never win.
Aw, dude.
All right. And then after that, the in-depth discussion is going to be all about the comics. So all these little topics coming up here are going to be in total 20, 30 minutes, and then the rest of the episode is going to be all about Batman and comics. Any very quick final thoughts before I throw it to JT for Just the Facts, Jeremy?
No, can't wait to hear it.
All right, Doug.
Sling it on, man.
Joker, are you alive? Or did somebody rip your face off?
He fell off. He fell off the clock tower or something.
Oh, wrong movie.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
I don't think Joker was in Perchance to Dream, so definitely wrong thing. All right, we'll be back after this.
Gotham City always brings a smile to my face. Winged freak terrorizes. Wait till they get a load of me.
This town deserves a better class of criminal. And I'm gonna give it to them.
When you think back on your childhood, who was the first superhero you ever encountered? Was it the Man of Steel, Superman? Perhaps. Could it have been the webbed wall crawler, the Amazing Spider-Man? Maybe. But it's more than likely that the first superhero we all encountered was the Masked Manhunter, the Caped Crusader, the Dark Knight detective himself, Batman.
What are you? I'm Batman.
Inspired by the likes of pulp heroes such as the Phantom, Zorro, and Doc Savage, Batman was created by artist Bob Kane and writer Bill Finger during the golden age of comics in the 1930s. Young Bruce Wayne bears witness to his parents being gunned down by a criminal and swears to spend the rest of his life warring on all crime. Watched over by his faithful butler Alfred Pennyworth, Bruce trains himself to both physical and mental perfection. But something is missing. He needs a disguise. But what? As if in answer, a huge bat flies into the room and inspires Bruce to create a costume designed to make him look like an enormous bat, so he can strike fear into the hearts of criminals everywhere, as criminals are a superstitious and cowardly lot. 2014 marks the 75th anniversary of the Batman, who debuted in the 6-page story The Case of the Chemical Syndicate in Detective Comics number 27, dated May 1939. In it, we are introduced for the first time to the Batman as he investigates a series of murders involving the partners of the Apex Chemical Company. After learning of the murder of a man named Lambert, Batman, as Bruce Wayne, discovers that there are 3 other men involved in the chemical business. Batman then races to the home of Steve Crane, another of the partners, but is too late. After dealing with the 2 thugs who had killed Crane, Batman finds a contract containing a vital clue as to who is behind the murders. Heading across town, Batman arrives just in time to save Rogers, another of the partners, from the mastermind Alfred Stryker, who tries to kill his former partner in his lab. Stryker wanted total control over the business and resorted to hiring some criminals to kill his partners, so he wouldn't have to keep paying them out as per the terms of a secret contract. Mad with rage, Stryker tries to escape, but a punch from Batman sends the killer chemist into a vat of acid. Batman grimly states it was a fitting end for his kind, before escaping through a skylight. The next day, Commissioner Gordon tells Bruce Wayne all about the previous night's events, and Wayne remarks it was a very lovely fairy tale as he leaves. Gordon mentions aloud that Bruce is a nice guy, but he's got to lead a boring life. But how surprised would the Commissioner be if he knew that his friend Bruce Wayne was really the Batman? The inaugural Batman story was straight out of the pulps. Bruce Wayne used his connections to the Commish to get access to a crime scene, and then as Batman, tracks down the culprits responsible for the rash of killings, ending the killer with a sock to the jaw. It even ends on a kind of a wink and a nod to the audience, with the narrator musing on what Gordon would do if he had known the truth. Sure, it may have been very simple and none too exciting by today's standards, but this is the story that started it all. The simplicity of the story, combined with the design of Batman's original batsuit with his high-eared cowl and Batwing cape, stuck in many a reader's mind for years to come, and would go on to become a cornerstone of the emerging superhero comic book genre. In his 75-year history, Batman has changed with the times. Right from the very beginning, he was a vigilante detective who fought against crime and corruption as much as he did supercriminals like the Joker and Catwoman. And as the golden age of comics rolled on into World War II, Batman would continue to change, becoming not only a superhero, but a supporter of the war effort as well. Comic covers during this time would frequently show Batman asking readers to buy war bonds, or, in the case of the cover to Batman number 30, he appears in the middle of the battlefield to hand a new gun to a soldier. Comics, everybody! However, after the war, superhero comics fell out of favor with many readers who saw such things as silly and childish. Due to the mandates of the newly established Comics Code Authority, The Dark Knight was pushed in an increasingly campy sci-fi direction. Gone were the days of gangsters and villains. Now Batman would face villains like the Mad Hatter and Mr. Freeze, deal with annoying fanboys from the Fifth Dimension, and travel back in time through hypnosis. Well, if anyone could make that work, it would be Batman. Eventually, this campy directive was given the old heave-ho again due to changes in the Comics Code Authority, and in May of 1964, Batman changed again in Detective Comics number 327 in The Mystery of the Menacing Mask, which is also the debut of Batman's new-look batsuit with the yellow moon highlighting the bat in his chest. The costume was not the only thing that changed, as Batman would continue to fight human-level criminals, but also dealt with many new and exotic villains, such as the Man-Bat and the seemingly immortal Ra's al Ghul. Bruce Wayne would also leave stately Wayne Manor and move into Gotham City in an attempt to re-establish his rep as the Batman of old, once again striking terror into the hearts and minds of criminal scum everywhere. It was during these years, through the 70s and into the 80s, that Batman's cases would become very grim and gritty, depicting ever more violent crimes. This Batman would last right up until 1985's Crisis on Infinite Earths, when this universe-shattering storyline would reboot the entire DC universe. Afterwards, Batman was taken back to his vigilante roots in the historic Batman Year One storyline, written by Frank Miller. Batman was once more established as a mysterious vigilante operating outside the law, while also maintaining a tenuous relationship with Commissioner Gordon. Through the years following Year One, this Batman would remain largely unchanged, except for that time a crazy luchador broke into Wayne Manor and broke his back.
Silly punks, Batman owns the night. Now taste fear. Wait, what? Oh, God! Oh, my back just snapped like a pack of uncooked spaghetti! Oh, you just walk up and break my back without saying a word! Oh, boo! Boo on you, sir!
Don't worry, he got better. Batman would recover and continue on in his mission, becoming darker and more obsessive along the way. Eventually, he would alienate all of the Bat family, lose his standing with the GCPD, nearly go to jail for murder, and be expelled from the Justice League. He would eventually reconcile with all his allies, rejoin the Justice League in good standing, and retrain himself, emerging a better, stronger Batman. Of course, it wasn't all that long after this that DC Comics rebooted their entire universe into the New 52, giving their characters new histories and origins, as well as making them more modern and accessible. Batman's history has remained largely unchanged during this, with a few subtle changes. For example, his origin has remained relatively intact, but the events of Year 1 have now been replaced by Year 0, an ongoing storyline detailing the first year of Batman operating in Gotham, fighting against the machinations of the Red Hood gang and the Riddler. Other things that have changed in the Bat universe since the New 52 came about include Tim Drake always using the name Red Robin, Barbara Gordon can walk again, and the Joker had his face cut off on purpose. But the most troubling development has to be Batman's discovery of the Court of Owls, a cult-like secret society that has ruled Gotham from the shadows for centuries, and who deal with their enemies by way of their zombified assassins known as Talons. With a character as rich and long-lived as Batman, writers like Alan Moore, Dennis O'Neil, and Grant Morrison have all been able to craft some of the seminal comic book stories of the genre, and of all of these stories, there are a few that every Bat fan must read. These include Batman the Killing Joke, written by Alan Moore with art by Brian Boland. In the story, Joker is shown that he's going to go to any length to try and break Batman, as he shoots and paralyzes Barbara Gordon before kidnapping Commissioner Gordon in an attempt to drive him insane as well. There is also The Dark Knight Returns, written and illustrated by Frank Miller, which is a tale set in a future where a 55-year-old Batman is suiting up once again to save Gotham City from the gangs that have overrun it, and ends up facing Superman in a fight that only one of them will survive. Miller also wrote the seminal story Year 1 with art from David Mazzucchelli, where they recount the beginning of Bruce Wayne's career as Batman and Detective James Gordon's arrival in town, and how they both fought against the graft and corruption nearly drowning Gotham City. And if you're feeling adventurous, I'd like to recommend you check out some of the Elseworld Batman stories, Elseworlds being DC Comics' version of the old Marvel comic What If. Some of my favorites include Castle of the Bat, an homage to the Frankenstein story where Bruce Wayne is a scientist that brings his father back from the dead as a patchwork monster that goes on a rampage and inadvertently solves his own murder. There's also Gotham by Gaslight, a story where a Victorian-era steampunk Batman must capture Jack the Ripper, who is operating in early 1900s Gotham City. But my favorite Elseworlds tale would have to be from 1994's Detective Comics Annual No. 7, entitled Leatherwing, where Batman is not a crime fighter, but a pirate captain in service to the British Crown, who raids ships of rival countries and fights against the insane pirate captain known only as the Laughing Man. To sum up, the Dark Knight has been many things over the course of the last 75 years. He's been a detective, a superhero, a symbol of justice, and a grim avenger of evil. He's fought every conceivable form of crime there is, from insane killer clowns to immortal eco-terrorists to nihilistic alien death gods from another world. Who is he? Well, I'll let the man himself tell you.
I am vengeance. I am the night. I am Batman.
So thank you, JT, for those rousing Just the Facts here inside the Pull Bag, episode 75. Let's go around the table. What were each of your guys' thoughts on the origin of Batman? Steve?
Well, I think it's kind of interesting the way that he came about and kind of his evolution over time. That between Bob Kane and Bill Finger on the evolution of the character before he became what we know now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, Jeremy?
For me, this is definitely Trauma 101. I mean, this took place in the 30s, and it was supposed to be in New York. And during the Great Depression, this was nothing new. Families were used to having their loved ones killed in front of them. They were used to the violence and the darkness of the economy collapsing. So the fact that you start off with this comic book where a kid watches his parents murdered in front of him, and he's staring down the gunman, and the gunman is more scared of this little boy staring him down than anything. I don't even think Joe Chill even took anything from Thomas and Martha after he shot them in cold blood. I think that if you can get your hands on that issue 1 of Comicsology, you could see that Joe Chill has, his eyes are wall-eyed, his face is crooked, and he's nervous. So it definitely started something that it's like, no more, we've had enough. And, children are our future, and I'm just glad that somehow, after witnessing the death of his parents, that he was able to not only move on, but push his body and his mind to the limits to make sure this would never happen again to anybody, rich or poor.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. What about you, Doug?
The origin story, it's I like the fact that that you see how Batman becomes Batman, that you see Bruce Wayne becoming dark because of what happened with his parents. The fact that he comes up, basically, I mean, yeah, he's the rich kid. He's, he's cared for by Alfred for most of his life. Coming through all that and coming through the adversity, it's a good, hey, I'm coming back and taking back, I'm going to beat back the streets. I thought it was decent, getting into some of the other further pop culture and having the story retold multiple times in multiple different ways. Personally, I think that was a little overdone, but that's further discussion later on.
For me, I didn't... The origin story, I hate to say it, but as a 9-year-old, I was forced to believe that, you danced with the devil in the pale moonlight. I didn't know any better at that time. I only knew the Adam West campy series. Not saying the Adam West 66 Batman series is bad. It's got its own place in the mythology, but, so I didn't know, like somebody mentioned Joe Chill to me about, 5-10 years ago. Even, I would say definitely before Batman Begins. So at least before 2005, I wouldn't have known who the hell you were talking about. And I'm just being honest there. The whole thing with the origin, that's pretty extreme for a kid at that age. Like that's really extreme. I mean, it must have been horrifying seeing your parents gunned down in cold blood, but for that kid to make that vow right then and then carry it out throughout the rest of his life, that's pretty hardcore and a little bit crazy.
Well, it's guilt too, if you think about it, because
Right.
if you hear from Bruce Wayne's perspective, he started off as a spoiled rich kid, and he feels guilty because he forced his parents to take him to see that movie, and then he got tired, and they went through Crime Alley, and they were gunned. If you see in another version, they were at the opera. Bruce was scared of these actors dressed as bats because we see a flashback where he fell down a well and bats scare him. He still feels guilty. No matter what the outcome is, he thought that it was his fault that his parents died.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. I just think it's a completely traumatic event, like I said. But I would never think that any child, would go to that much of extreme, regardless of the guilt that you felt. But it is a very interesting way to do an origin, and it basically started 75 years of Batman. Batman, Bruce Wayne, Gotham, a lot of that stuff is created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. Don't care what any of the comics say. I don't care what any of the media DVD says. Bill Finger is a co-creator. I mean, that would be like,
it would be like having just Siegel and not Shuster in Superman.
Well, yeah, there is that, but I was going to say what it would be like is if, heaven forbid this doesn't happen anytime soon, but let's say Steve passes away and I take sole credit for the Geekcast Radio Network. That would be completely assholish of me, and that's what I honestly think. Now, I know back then in those days, deals like that, and deals like, for example, Mel Blanc being credited as the only voice actor for all the Looney Tunes cartoons. I know they don't make deals like that anymore, but I mean, come on. I mean, the Kane family can't really be that damn shallow to not allow, and I assume, and I don't know this, I assume, because I'm not looking at any Wikipedia articles or anything else, I assume Bill Finger and Bob Kane, they co-created the damn character and the city and all that stuff. I assume they were friends, so it's not like, it was two guys and, sitting in two different corners with two different damn dunce caps on. So, I mean, come on, get over it. Alright, so the next little topic here is Batman in TV and film. Now, this is live action only. We'll talk about the animation separately. I remember growing up in the 80s watching reruns of the 66 show. I remember this being so damn cool because at the time, I didn't realize it was a 60s show. I mean, if you look at Batman 66, it looks like something that could have come out of the 80s, doesn't it?
Oh, hell yes. Hell yes.
I thought it was a Saturday morning cartoon at first because I remember watching the reruns of 66 in 84. And I remember when the weekday afternoon cartoons were over and they would have that animated sequence, I thought, it's 5 o'clock, we get more cartoons. And then it was this live action. I said, no, thank you. I think when 89 came out and they were pushing the 66 show again, I watched this and they played that show, I think, up until 1992, 1993 because of Batman 89 and Batman Returns. This is actually what got me into Batman, as campy as it is, and I got the discs next to me and got Adam West to sign a picture where there was a Photoshop where he was holding, the bomb from Batman the movie underneath Joker from Dark Knight. I gave it to him. He looks at it. He's like, did you Photoshop this? And I said, yeah, I found it on Facebook, and I figured this would be perfect because, he talked about Heath Ledger. So, it was definitely worth the autograph. But the 66 show, it holds up. I mean, they do talk about in the pilot the death of the family because Bruce does say that he's using his money to make sure that, his parents were killed in front of him. He never wants to have, he only mentions them once. But the show was violent from time to time. The problem, they had to make it campy because of kids. They didn't want, and that's why Batman was only deputized in that TV show. Because they did not want Batman, he is a vigilante, and they didn't want kids to be corrupt. And that's why they always had to have those, values and moral codes with Robin.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was still just a little too far out there in some cases.
Want to hear some interesting trivia, though? Guess who was going to be the Joker? Blue Eyes himself.
Frank Sinatra?
Yes.
That would never work.
He wanted to be Joker, and, well, it's funny because producer William Dozer, who was the narrator for this show, thought the same thing. He did not think that Sinatra could play Joker.
I mean, if you want to, combine Sinatra, the Joker, and the singing sword from Roger Rabbit, sure. You can have a singing sword Joker, but as what the Joker was played by Cesar Romero, that would have never worked with Sinatra.
No.
Not at all. Doug, what were your initial beginnings with Batman on TV?
Well, for me, it was again Batman 66 because I watched it pretty much. I would tune in, same bat time, same bat channel to watch it. That was the big thing for me. I remember seeing that, and my grandmother loved Adam West. I mean, she grew up. He used to do a DJ radio station in Hawaii, and so she knew him from that. And so she would sit us down and say, "Here, you have to watch this show. It's really good." And just seeing that, and all the campy stuff that you'd see, like them climbing up the walls and having people pop out at random and tell jokes that was just absolutely corny, stupid jokes. I loved it. I thought it was great. I mean, that was part of it there. And then when we got into the animated series, again, that was really kind of my hook. I know that was, you're looking for more live action, but that's really more so where I got into my Batman stuff.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Steve, for the live action stuff for TV?
Well, I first saw the 66 Batman in the early 90s. And I used to sit there and watch it with my mom. who grew up on it. And at the time, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Now I look at it and see it for the campy goofiness that it is, and it definitely screams. You can see the '60s kind of byproduct to it, like the original Star Trek and kind of how hokey the whole thing is, but it also screams '80s because if you look at it, it almost reminds me of the Super Mario Brothers Super Show where you have the.
No.
Yes,
He's
yes.
going.
No.
I'm going there.
Thankfully, they never. Thankfully, Batman was made in the '60s. This television show. Thankfully, they never thought ever to put Adam West and Burt Ward in drag like they did with Mario and Luigi. Oh my God.
That thought aside, they still put them in animation doing their vocals throughout a lot of the '70s.
Yeah, that's very true. All right, so the other. See, that's a funny thing. I don't know what the whole Warner Brothers Kane family deal is, but there hasn't been a real Batman television show since the '60s. And by real Batman television show, I mean actually having somebody in the suit on the screen.
There's a reason for that. 3 reasons. One, it has to deal with that suit. And as you probably know, it's rubber. And the problem is that anytime somebody would try to work out and put on the suit, it would make them look fat. The second problem is budget. I can't imagine a Batman TV show with the budget that they would want for the movie to work on TV. And the third problem would be casting, because who would you think TV-wise would pull off Batman, and who do you think TV-wise could pull off Penguin, Joker, Two-Face? And the fourth problem, I think, would be merchandise, be demographics. Would it be for kids, adults? Because it goes to so many problems in scripts.
I don't think that there's such a problem with it. I think that, I mean, look at Arrow. That's the point taken right there. It's basically Batman with Green Arrow. I mean, it's...
Well, in that case, then let's look at Gotham. I mean,
well, wait a second. Hold on.
Sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself.
We'll get to Gotham. Hold on 1 second.
But yeah, I mean, I can kind of see that, but it's still, it's not a question of who would they get, because obviously they can figure that out. Kind of like they've done with the live action stuff in the films, or other DC characters that they've managed to hit the small screen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so, like I said, there hasn't been a true Batman television show on TV since the '60s. Now, oh dang. Oh yeah, that's awesome. That'll be a good little note for later. Since we're breaking up animation from live action, there was a series that very short-lived series from in 2003, Birds of Prey.
I knew you were going to bring that up. I was just about to...
I don't care what anyone says. For what this show was, for the fact that it was WB, I fucking loved it. And I loved it mainly for 2 reasons. Number 1, Mark Hamill returned as the voice of the Joker.
Yes.
Number 2, Ferris Bueller's girlfriend is Harley Quinn.
I knew you were going to say that too, yes. But she never put on the suit, though.
No, well, she's Dr. Harleen Quinzel, yes, but, if the show had gotten its legs under it. And the third reason, Aunt Becky from Full House is Black Canary.
That is kind of funny.
That is kind of awesome. All right, so there's Birds of Prey. It's not that great of it. I mean, I still love the show. I still enjoy it for what it is, but let's face it, most of the time it's universally panned by everybody. And again, I think that, at least in my opinion, it's one of those things where even back then networks weren't giving stuff a really good running start and chance to get its legs under itself. After that, for television, we've got coming up Gotham, which is before everything, basically. This is basically Fox's answer to Smallville.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I'm having a hard time with that, but we'll see. Maybe it'll...
Well, okay, Smallville was WBCW, but that's what I'm saying. This is Fox's way of saying, hey, we can take a superhero character, rogues gallery, and origin and put it on television too. Let's do Batman. And this is before Penguin, before Riddler, before Poison Ivy, before Batman, before Catwoman. And the interesting thing here is Ben McKenzie voiced Batman in the Year One animated film, but I believe this is his first time home to Fox since his series The OC ended a number of years ago. So that's a little interesting factoid there. With Gotham, I'm very optimistic. My hope for it is, however long it goes, I honestly don't want it to go 10 seasons like Smallville did. I'd say maybe 5, 6 is a good round kind of number. And my hope for and I know I'm saying this, but my hope for whenever the series finale happens is that it's part of Affleck's multi-appearance deal that he has with Warner Brothers.
Oh, that
I think that would be really, really cool. Because if you're telling a story that's before Batman, that it's, a child Bruce Wayne, and it maybe takes him into his teen years, and then he goes away for, and comes back as an adult, kind of like a whole, Simba, going to meet Timon and Pumbaa kind of thing, and he comes back, and you end the series with, however Ben Affleck is going to sound as Batman, you end the series with Affleck in the suit. That would be awesome.
You've heard rumors, though, like what they tried to do with Year One, where Batman was going to go to a garage and meet these two mechanics, Big Al and Little Al. But, I mean, I've also heard that Joss Whedon wanted to work on this show, and he wanted to do the teenage years. But I am optimistic. I've seen the trailer 45 times. I'm impressed. The only pit in my stomach that I have is on Fox, because Fox, as you know, the executives are like, okay, it's not about ratings. If they just don't like it for the sake of not liking it, it goes into the can. That's my only fear. But past that, I don't know. I mean, I know what this is going to be about. I just don't know why they're pushing. I can understand Penguin, because I would love to see Penguin before he became Penguin. Catwoman, yeah, but I don't know why they're pushing Poison Ivy.
You never know. I think it's one of those things where the only thing that's going to make me upset about it being at Fox is if Fox screws with the scheduling of the airing of the show.
You're right. Another
Can't be any worse than
Firefly
Cartoon Network.
Oh, God, don't eat. That's a whole other podcast, dude.
Yeah.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
Steve or Doug, do you guys have any quick thoughts on Gotham before we transfer into the films?
Basically along line with what you're saying there. I hope that it's going to be good. I am praying that it doesn't end up being another Smallville, because while I like Smallville, it went on way too long.
Yeah, there were several story arcs in that series that could have been cut the hell out.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, that's another podcast.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be good. I'm hoping, again, trying to be quietly optimistic. Hopefully it doesn't fall flat and Fox doesn't say, oh, let's run episode 13 as episode 6 or some bullshit like that. So,
yeah. Steve?
I can really see them totally, screwing everything up. But I'm going to wait and see what happens. Only for the fact that yeah, it's an origin, but they may move on very quickly as the seasons progress. I can't see them having Bruce Wayne as a kid for the entire run, and they're going to milk it. So it's
Oh yeah.
at some point he's going to have to grow into the role.
Now I assume 3 out of the 4 of us have seen Batman '89 in theaters, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Did you get your Jim Henley's advanced comic book ticket?
No.
All right. Well, Jim Henley's used to be this huge comic book store, at least around my area in New York, and you would buy this advanced ticket to see a 7 a.m. viewing of Batman opening day. So, of course, the comic book store was packed. Got my ticket, and of course, I still had to wait. There was a huge line around the block. If you ever watched The Simpsons, the Itchy and Scratchy movie where Bart opens up his door, and that's when the line begins, that's pretty much what Batman '89 was like. And we went in. The air conditioning was working, and they couldn't shut it off. We could hardly, because this is before IMAX sound, the so we couldn't hear it. And finally, I think right around 45 minutes, they finally were able to turn it off. And I had crappy seats, but I'll tell you, people were pumped. It was packed. You couldn't. Kevin Smith said it best. You could not go anywhere. You had to get. I remember going to Macy's and getting like 3 of these Macy's exclusive Batman T-shirts with the symbol and the bats flying around. It was insane.
Absolutely. What about you, Doug?
This movie, I was really impressed with it. I remember seeing all the stuff, Nintendo Power coming out and talking about it with the Batman video game that was going to be coming out. One of the big things that I remember was Weird Al hated this movie. And the whole reason that Weird Al hated the movie was because his movie came out the same weekend as Batman. UHF came out the same weekend as Batman. Just killed all chances. And he was all excited. He's like, this is going to be a great movie. And Batman happened. And box offices blew up with Michael Keaton all over the screen and Jack Nicholson as Joker. I mean, it was probably... I'm going to say this. For the movies, Heath Ledger's number 1 for the Joker. Jack Nicholson is probably my number 2 for the Joker for live action stuff.
Steve, when did you eventually see Batman '89? Because I know at 3 years old your mom did not take you to see this movie.
I saw it actually probably in '91. I want to say.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, I was little. The sad thing is, I didn't mind that movie. It was when it got to Returns that it scared the shit out of me as a kid.
Yeah. No, I can agree. Batman Returns was
sick.
Very dark.
Very like if you thought Batman '89 was dark with what the Joker was doing, Burton knocked it to a whole new level with the sickening twist of Penguin.
You know why?
No.
Because Burton thought that Penguin was wimpy and he wanted to make it darker because he figured, okay, if I kill Joker, who's going to be the second guy who's going to trump Joker? So that's why they had to make Penguin a mutant.
Yeah, but he could have been so much better of a mutant than friggin' Junior. We do not need Mr. Throw Mama from the Train as the friggin' Penguin.
But that's what the public
he was
wanted.
Real creepy.
Yeah, I mean that's by far Danny DeVito is a comedian. Let's face it, he is. I think that's the most creepiest role he has ever done his entire career.
He did have a really good line in the movie. The best line I think from him was when he's standing there and he's talking to the public and he goes, all I wanted to be was number 1, but all they treated me like was number 2.
Yeah. There are a couple of things about Batman Returns I liked. Obviously, Michelle Pfeiffer in the catsuit. And, of course, the fact that you have a full-on... I mean, Ernie would go crazy, ladies and gentlemen. He really would, because you had a supersized rubber ducky.
Oh, yeah. That's from the zoo. That's a thing that they forgot. In the novelization, he's at the old abandoned Gotham Zoo, and apparently there's this old children's section, and that's where the duck comes from. It's from a ride. And apparently there's this whole thing where Penguin was a kid and where he was playing with these other, the Penguins that adopted him in the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But they tried to make that rubber duck. They tried to market that as a toy. They tried to make that, I think, in one of the final bosses in the Atari Lynx version of the game.
Oh my god.
Yeah, you were Batman. The problem is because of the glare, you couldn't see it, but my friend had it, and apparently at the end, like, the duck would go up and down, like there was, like, the wheels with the conveyor belt, and Batman had to keep jumping and throwing batarangs at it until it exploded.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. All right, and then now I get it. These movies, a lot of people don't like them. A lot of people felt they were more fun, brought back a lot of the camp to Batman. I will defend one, and I will only defend one certain aspect of the other. I very much enjoyed Batman Forever. I still do to this day, mainly because back then I had a huge crush on Nicole Kidman. And Nicole Kidman as Dr. Chase Meridian, wowza. The movie itself, it has its moments. Is it the best thing ever? No. Is it the worst thing ever? No. But I did very much enjoy it. On the other hand, the only thing going for Batman and Robin is the fact that they got Alicia Silverstone to play Batgirl.
Yeah.
No British accent, though. I don't understand why, but...
suspension of disbelief.
Well,
and why is she not Commissioner Gordon's daughter?
That I couldn't tell you. Maybe because Pat Hingle wasn't around at the time. I'm not sure. I don't know.
She's related to Alfred.
I'm going to say that Alfred was the best thing about that movie.
He was the best thing about that whole set.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Gough, the actor as Alfred, was absolutely amazing. Best thing he ever did for that franchise was the Diet Coke commercial. I love that commercial. And then we would go 8 years without a Batman movie. In 2005, Christopher Nolan blew everybody away, and Batman Begins, and we get this whole new trilogy of Bat films. And we get Christian Bale as Batman. So we've had so far Michael Keaton twice, Val Kilmer, who, that's another thing I'll defend Batman and Batman Forever about. He was a better Bruce Wayne than he was a Batman. And then we had Mr. ER himself, George Clooney, in Batman and Robin, which he is by far the worst Batman ever, in live action anyway. So we go to 2005, we go to Batman Begins. Steve, what was your initial reaction when you heard the news about Batman Begins?
What's funny is I actually didn't even, it never hit my radar until The Dark Knight came out.
Oh, wow, really?
Like, I didn't even know it was out. Like, because I was in a period of just working consistently and had a lot going on, so it just never clicked with me.
Wow.
I ended up watching it later before The Dark Knight, but...
right, yeah.
I actually heard about this on VH1's The Best Week Ever, where they mentioned that I think Christian Bale was going to be Batman, and I knew of him from American Psycho, and I thought, well, it would make more sense for him to be Joker, and actually Cillian Murphy, who plays Scarecrow, was supposed to be Bruce Wayne, but then Christian Bale came along and Christopher Nolan said, you know what, I'll make you Scarecrow and I'll make you Batman because of all the things that Bale did to his body to fit in that suit. But I just remember hearing that here were going to be the villains. It was going to be Scarecrow and Ra's al Ghul. And I was like, now you're just like picking villains out of thin air. Like at one point it was going to be Man-Bat. At one point it was going to be Scarecrow and Harley Quinn. Why these two? And surprisingly, the story made sense of why Scarecrow, because he's head of Arkham, he made a deal with Ra's to get these flowers to experiment on so he can create his fear toxin. And then Ra's would come in to, dissolve the water and use the fear toxin to destroy the world. This villain, the Loeb as Ra's al Ghul, well, we'll talk about that later, but Qui-Gon Jinn is Ra's. Well, it's Liam Neeson. I'm not going to complain. But I walked out of there going, I wanted a little more, and they were so concerned about bringing Joker in. But, Batman Begins is the only weak link in that series, or at least, with Batman Begins, I think, has to be Katie Holmes.
Both actresses sucked.
You didn't like Maggie Gyllenhaal?
I didn't like them tossing in that character, honestly.
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that whole character of Rachel is meant to ground him or show him a proper way to do things, and it's just a waste. I would have rather have had another Vicky Vale. Honestly, it would have been a lot better. And the fact that you have to get two different actresses to play the same damn role, they should have just killed Katie Holmes and created a whole new female interest. But that's just my 2 cents. All right, so we have Batman Begins 2005. 3 years later, we all believe in Harvey Dent.
Oh, that 800 number you used to get.
Yep. And now, I've seen Heath Ledger in probably 3 of his biggest films to this point. 10 Things I Hate About You is his breakout. Okay, granted, it's not a huge film, but it's turned into a cult classic. The Patriot with Mel Gibson, and A Knight's Tale. And, 2008, I was just kind of getting back, into the superhero stuff. I was on the internet full time, and I was kind of, apprehensive after introducing the Joker at the end of Batman Begins. And hearing Heath Ledger, I didn't freak out like everybody on the internet did. Like, everybody, oh, Mr. Brokeback Mountain, he's not going to be able to play the Joker. Come on now. I saw a lot of that going around the internet. I never personally said that. But, I mean, he brought that role to, like, I don't know any actor today that could portray it better than he did in 2008.
No, that was lightning in a bottle, and I think what's sad is that had he lived, he was going to be in Dark Knight Rises.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Steve, thoughts on The Dark Knight and how you first originally saw it?
I think I saw The Dark Knight in theater. And I remember just, to begin with, I was kind of off-put by Heath Ledger, but then I was kind of like, you know what? I'm fine with it because he did a really good job for the character. So I just the whole way that they managed to capture everybody in that film and do something that we'd never seen before with Batman kind of it kind of blew me away watching it.
Absolutely. Jeremy and Doug, what are your initial thoughts on Dark Knight?
Dark Knight for me was probably the best one. I mean, I will say that I was absolutely surprised at how well Heath pulled it off. My first experience with him was Knight's Tale, and I thought that was absolutely awful that they bastardized rock songs with, medieval times. But moving on to this, and I sat there and was just floored by how well and how spooky he was, especially when he kept telling his origin story to everybody, like
in different ways, all the different ways.
You never heard the same thing twice.
Nope.
Jeremy? For me, people were bitching, and I think I was bitching for about a tenth of a second, and as lucky coincidence had it, Will Smith's I Am Legend, if you went to see it in IMAX, you got to see the first 5 minutes of the bank heist. Paid my $20, watched the bank heist, went back, paid another $20. I must have done it about 3-4 times, spent like probably $100 just to see that scene. I could not shut up about that scene. I could not. I mean, Danny Elfman, Hans Zimmer, fine. 2 different cats doing their score. But the way that they were able to do that score in the beginning, to pick up Joker at the corner right before they're about to rob the bank, it's like that holding that chord on the violin. I think that's how they did it. and just how the criminals are talking like they don't know who the Joker is, they don't even know the Joker exists. They're just there to rob the bank, and one by one, each criminal is getting greedier and killing off the next person who's shutting off the alarm, who's opening up the vault. You have the bank manager who will eventually be Shredder, and I'll talk about that another time. Is trying to shoot at Joker, and you can even see with the masks and the conversations. Heath, and also I think there was some great balance, and I've said this before about comic book movies. 10 minutes goes to Joker, 10 minutes goes to Bruce Wayne, 10 minutes to Batman, Alfred, and it keeps going around and around in a great circle. And also this movie plays a great game of put up or shut up, where in other movies, the villain would capture the damsel in distress and Batman would save the day. This one, you didn't know what was going to happen. Rachel died you thought, okay, he was going to save her. No. The only disappointment was Harvey Dent turning into Two-Face was too fast, too quick, too soon. They killed him, and that's it. And Batman will take the fall, even though Joker has been threatening to blow up hospitals if somebody who knows about Batman's identity won't be, is going to be revealed. And Joker's like, if he's not dead in an hour, I'm going to blow up a hospital. It's like, why would Batman take responsibility for all this? But other than that, yeah, this is a very hard, besides Heath Ledger, this is going to be a very hard script to top Batman-wise.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And finally, for the live-action film and TV stuff, we've got The Dark Knight Rises. I enjoyed the movie for what it was. I would probably rank them... If I was going to rank them 1 through 3, being 1 the best and 3 not necessarily the worst, but the lower end of the totem pole, I'd probably go Dark Knight Rises and then Begins, because Begins for me is the second half of the movie. Once he becomes Batman is where it gets me, excited. The first half where he's going through his training and all that crap, and he burns Raish's house down and Raish burns his house. I don't care. But The Dark Knight Rises, I liked it. I thought it was interesting. Having the Princess Diary chick as Catwoman was interesting. So there is that. I don't know, Doug, initial impressions on Dark Knight Rises?
It was okay. I felt it was slow. I really tried to get into it, and because I kept thinking, I'm going to like this because I really liked, Dark Knight, and it felt like it dragged on. For me, one of the best parts was just seeing Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I thought he was excellent, especially in a little bit at the very end where you find out that he's supposed to be Robin, and then, he's discovering the Batcave, and I was kind of hoping that, hey, the next series he'll become Nightwing or something to that effect, and who knows? Maybe they'll do that. I don't know, but it just wasn't as good as the first two. I probably would rank that third out of the three of them. Not that it wasn't good. It just that's where it would stand for me.
Mm-hmm. Steve, what about you?
As far as The Dark Knight Rises, I enjoyed the film. I had other issues with it. I also had one of those Inception mindfuck moments in the film, but I saw it coming. But I also knew some of the source material that it was kind of pulling from, so on that front, it didn't really bother me either. So I mean, it's I don't know, it's not my favorite. I would rather watch The Dark Knight than Dark Knight Rises.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really care for what they did to Batman as a character or Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, it's a little crazy.
Why didn't you just kill me? Your punishment must be more severe.
All right. I'd rather watch Spider-Man 3 over The Dark Knight Rises. I thought putting Bane in was a mistake. I didn't like the fact that Talia was the villain when she's supposed to be the love interest. I didn't like the fact that they took No Man's Land, Nightfall, Battle for the Cowl, and tried to cram it into 2 hours and 40 minutes. The only interesting thing was how they changed Robin's origin around a little bit. I was really hoping that within the 90-minute mark, Bruce Wayne would fake his death and, Robin would take over as Nightwing instead of, everybody in the theater going, okay, that's going to be Nightwing, that's going to be Nightwing, that's going to be Nightwing. Yeah, they changed his origin. And as for Hathaway as Catwoman, no, she is no Michelle Pfeiffer and she is no Julie Newmar.
You and the Joker?
Ryder Rooney! I've never seen you laugh before. I don't think I like it. Cut it out! You're giving me the creeps!
You little fool.
We're going to take a quick break. We're actually going to take a moment of silence in remembrance of Ephraim Zimbalist Jr., who recently passed away. He was the voice of Alfred in the DC animated universe. We'll be back after this.
Oh my God.
Master Bruce, Miss Gordon, I see you've discovered our little secret. Yes, I admit it. I am Batman.
So now that we have found out that Alfred Pennyworth is Batman, Batman in animation, you had the Adventures of Batman and Robin in the 70s, you had a lot of Batman cartoons in the 80s. I think most of them featured Adam West and Burt Ward voicing the characters. I liked them. You had, the new Scooby-Doo movies with Batman and Robin. I liked those. You had the Super Friends, all those shows. I liked those, but it didn't really, Batman for me didn't really hit until 1992.
Yeah.
22 years ago. Steve, I assume BTAS was your first exposure?
To the animation?
Yeah.
Yes and no. It was the major one that I paid attention to. But I was originally introduced via Cartoon Network and shows like that to the Super Friends. So I got to see the hokey version before I got to watch the true DCAU version where, you have a real Justice League and not the Wonder Twins.
Don't forget about Gleek.
Yeah, nobody remembers them.
What about the Wonder Dog? Didn't they have like a Wonder Dog or something? The other twins?
Probably, but Gleek is more memorable, honestly.
Yeah.
What about you, Doug? What was your first?
Well, for me, I remember seeing Super Friends and hearing Casey Kasem doing Robin. That was probably my first exposure to it, and I was kind of like, "Wow, that sounds odd." Hearing him, because I always heard him on the radio, so it was a big thing for me to hear that doing Top 40. Probably the best by far, Kevin Conroy is Batman. He is the goddamn Batman. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Always and forever.
Yeah. Yep. And beyond.
Yeah. What about you, Jeremy?
For me, I would watch Challenge of the Super Friends as a kid on Saturday mornings. But when it came to the 92 show, I was in high school at the time, so I wasn't watching too many cartoons. But I would channel surf. I just remember the design and voice of Joker. I didn't know it was Mark Hamill at the time. It wasn't until Mask of the Phantasm they had it behind the scenes that it was Mark Hamill. I started to watch a show in reruns in college, and I was impressed that it played like a radio drama. I know it was trying to go back to the 40s serials and the 40s, but every time I said there was no way this could be for an 8-year-old, which was perfect. It didn't insult your intelligence. It was well written. Yeah, there were some turkeys, but what show back then, even today, doesn't have a few turkeys here and there? And of course, I discussed my top 37 animated episodes of Batman the Animated Series, but I think the reason why the show worked was for 3 reasons. 1, the design. 2, the cast. And 3, we got to talk about that score because it did change over the seasons. I think it was Shirley Walker who did the score.
Yes, for the most part it was Shirley Walker. Danny Elfman did the original theme, and then she went back with New Adventures, and then The Adventures of Batman and Robin, which was, I believe, the 2nd season, and then New Adventures was the final 2 seasons. But yeah, it was Shirley Walker. It was her and her team, and she really made a breakout. This is again one of those deals that you don't often see, but Shirley Walker was very, very into the art of getting people, exposure for composing, and she had a program for composers that no one. I don't even think they have a program like this today.
No.
They might still have it. I'm not sure. I might have to ask her son Ian, but it's just one of those things where the music for this series, the music for the entire DC animated universe, Batman, Superman, Batman Beyond, Justice League Unlimited, is simply amazing. All of it is damn good. Batman would then transition to Superman with the first ever team up in World's Finest in the DCAU, the first ever team up, I should say. And then we would get to Justice League in the cartoon continuity, not the continuity of release of show, but the cartoon continuity of actual events. And then, we would head 50 years into the future and talk about Batman Beyond. I remember watching this show and was like, wait, Batman's old? What is going on here? And as I kept watching it, and I remember the first time I saw the Rebirth two-parter, I was like, I'm completely sold on this. This is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was The Dark Knight Returns, because I guess they couldn't make it into a DCAU. This was the best thing. It was, Bruce Wayne was going to become Alfred, which made sense. And, of course, you had a new Rogue Gallery.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, you had the return of Freeze. They kind of did a closure on that with his, what happened to him. Yeah.
They kind of needed to do a closure on Freeze. I mean, the last time we'd seen him was in New Adventures, and he turned into a damn spider.
Yeah, and I'm not complaining. I mean, I thought it was an awesome. The only thing is that it's still, I don't know. It's ironic that the first time we see him with Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, who recreated the origin, it's heartbreaking, and then it ends. And it's even more heartbreaking.
Yeah. Doug or Steve or Jeremy, do you guys have any other thoughts on any of the other DCAU stuff before I move on to the next iteration?
I like the Batman. It was okay. It's a guilty pleasure.
Batman Beyond, probably the next best thing, and I mean, we covered that on my podcast, so I'm not even going to really go into it. So,
Steve,
my favorites were Batman the Animated Series through all its various title changes, and Batman Beyond. Those were my favorites. I mean, I have a spot for Justice League, but ultimately I still love anything with just Batman in it.
Yeah, Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, he got some really good you thought the one-liners from Batman were good in TAS and Superman's crossovers in Justice League. He gets some amazing good one-liners. Just absolutely amazing. In 2004, we had The Batman. It's an interesting new take on it. I didn't really get into The Batman too much. I didn't jump in until I think the season 5 two-part of the Batman Superman story, when Tim Daly returned as Superman and Clancy Brown returned as Lex Luthor in that two-part episode for season 5. I still have to go back and watch the Batman all 5 seasons. Let's see what about you guys, Doug and Jeremy, for the Batman?
I have to be honest that I never really saw it.
I own it. I own all 5 seasons. I have to say, though, this is really... It works because it's actually year 3 of Batman. And it shows that he's not there training-wise, and it shows that, okay, now we have Barbara Gordon and Jim Gordon, and Barbara's jailbait, but she comes in before Robin. And Kevin Conroy, who's supposed to be Dick Grayson's father. And, of course, you got Mark Hamill as Tony Zuko in Season 4. And let's not forget the late, great Frank Gorshin, the Riddler, voiced Dr. Hugo Strange in seasons, I believe, 2 and 3 before he passed away. So the only flaw was, and I'm not taking anything away from Michael Clark Duncan. I mean, no,
Mhm.
was it Michael Clark Duncan? No, no.
Wait, who are you trying to remember?
The voice actor voiced Joker. It's not Michael Clark Duncan.
Oh, it's no Kevin Michael
Kevin
Richardson.
Michael Richardson. I'm sorry. I'm not taking anything away from Kevin Michael Richardson. He's a great voice actor, phenomenal. But the problem with him as Joker, I don't know. I think you mentioned this before. He looked like a Muppet. And I think with Freeze, okay, they didn't want to do the Bruce Tim Paul Dini storyline. That didn't work. Firefly surprisingly works in this because he only has like 2 episodes. But other than that, season 5, they tried to bring in Justice League. It's kind of okay, but I didn't like the actor who voiced Martian Manhunter in that one. And then, of course, they got rid of Detective Yin. I kind of liked her, but she just like goes away. We never know what happens to her. And what else was there? Yeah, I mean, Clayface. I really was not impressed with the Clayface origin in this. It made no sense.
No, not at all.
But
right.
we did have Freddy Krueger as Riddler, so that's not bad.
That's interesting. So you've had John Glover and Freddy Krueger, wow, as Riddler. Holy crap. Next up is Batman the Brave and the Bold. I understand this is a love letter to the Silver Age of comics. I still, to this day, cannot get over it's fucking Oswald from the Drew Carey Show as the voice of Batman. I don't really hold it against the show that much anymore because I'm used to it by now, but I can only watch certain episodes of this show. The Batman from Super Planet X, where Kevin Conroy was a guest voice. Any of the Batmite episodes, absolutely love those. But the rest of it just isn't my Batman.
Guilty pleasure for me. Love the show. Yeah. And I also love the fact that the Fonz played Ambush Bug in Mightfall. That was awesome.
Yeah. Steve, have you seen, outside of, I know you've seen Batman from Super Planet X or whatever that episode's called with Kevin Conroy. Have you seen any of the other ones?
Yeah, I've watched some of the Brave and the Bold. I actually have one of the seasons, so the first season. So I've actually watched it. It's not too bad. I was quite impressed with it. I was expecting it to be terrible, but I was actually pleasantly surprised.
Mm-hmm. And finally, for the television animation, the cartoons, the actual cartoons, we have Beware the Batman. Now, this is a series that Cartoon Network dicked around and dicked around and dicked around, and it is now getting its final episodes done through Toonami at 3 a.m. on Saturday mornings.
Cartoon Network, you screwed the pooch again.
Yep.
When don't they?
We'll have to revisit that at another time. Yeah. Leave that stupid dog alone.
Too stupid dog.
Yeah. But where the Batman, I know a lot of people have criticized it as far as it not having any, as far as not having Kevin Conroy or any of the mainstream known voice actors. I don't mind it. I don't mind the voice of Bruce Wayne Batman in this. I actually like it because the guy who voices him, it fits the animation model, and that is one of my biggest complaints. We're not going to go into talking all about every single Batman DCAU movie. This is a comics podcast. We're not going to. It'll be way too much time. But what I've come to realize over the years of watching Batman in animation after the DC animated universe, it really depends on the animated model as far as who I like doing a voice for it. Because there are several times didn't dislike his voice work, but there are several times that I've said Kevin Conroy should not have been the voice of Batman here because his style, his Batman, the Batman we all know and love, does not fit this animation. Gotham Knight, the Batman Gotham Knight film is a perfect example because that was 6 different animation styles in one damn movie. But where the Batman, I liked it. I thought it was interesting. They started off with not your average everyday rogues gallery villain. I like that you have a build up to the big guns, and it just never really because of Cartoon Network, it never really got a chance. And now they're just, they're finally giving us the final episodes, but it's like, at what cost? I mean, seriously? Come on.
I'm intrigued by Professor Pig because I think this is a brand new Batman villain. I think he came out in 07 or 09.
I'd have to look it up, but
yeah, he's an interesting. I'm surprised they put him in Beware the Batman. Same thing with Humpty Dumpty because I read him in Arkham Living Hell, the graphic novel. So yeah, he's once you talk about the comic stories, yeah, he's a real sick SOB. But yeah, I think they took a chance by bringing in the D and F villains and trying to make them A villains.
Mm-hmm.
So the only question that I have, and maybe it's just me, do you like the CGI animation in Saturday morning cartoons? Because for me, I'm old school. I like hand drawn. I'm not the CGI. I just felt the models are not there.
Mm-hmm. No, I liked it. Well, compared to Brave and the Bold, I love Beware the Batman's animation. Not saying that Brave and the Bold was bad, but it was more that dark, BTAS kind of style. Sure, it was CGI, but I really dug it. I thought it was great. Doug, have you seen Beware the Batman?
No, I have not actually had a chance to, partially because Cartoon Network has been dicking around with the schedule. So it's not cartoons, but that's... yeah. I probably will eventually pick it up if it ever shows up on Netflix or if I find it somewhere.
Mm-hmm. And I know, Steve, you have the quote-unquote Season 1 DVD, right?
Yeah, I have Season 1, Volume 1. It's actually it's actually really good. The only problem I have is that, like we've already discussed, it's Cartoon Network screwing with the schedule because I would like to watch the damn show.
Yeah,
it's actually good. And then they introduced Raish, and then they've tried to break the mold. It's going Joker, Riddler, Penguin, Freeze, Ivy, blah blah blah. They're branching out and hitting these villains that I was not familiar with, and that some of them I find entertaining, like Professor Pig. I don't really care for, but I like Anarchy.
Yes.
Yeah, I like Anarchy too. Anarchy is like Anarchy's Beware the Batman's Anarchy is like Mad Stan in Batman Beyond. So, all right. Anybody else want to talk about Beware the Batman or? Well, before we go to the comics, let's. Even though I'm not a big fan of the latest DC Animated Universe original film, Son of Batman, I'm going to give my top 3 Batman voice actors. Hopefully, you guys can do the same. For me, it's Kevin Conroy, number 1, will never not be number 1. Number 2 is Bruce Greenwood from Under the Red Hood. And number 3, surprisingly, is Jason O'Mara from the Justice League War and Son of Batman animated features. Jason O'Mara, after watching Son of Batman, his voice really fits the tone of the new 52 Batman. Steve?
Yeah, I kind of... I don't mind him as much, but I still like Bruce Greenwood better than anybody else if I have the option.
Mm-hmm.
I like him better, and I don't mind the guy that more or less replaces Kevin Conroy in Arkham Origins either, but Bruce Greenwood's probably my second favorite, besides the Beware the Batman version.
Doug?
Kevin Conroy, of course, Bruce Greenwood, and then I have to throw in Adam West because, he is Batman still.
Mm. No, I should say, when I said top 3 voice actors for Batman, I meant Batman Bruce Wayne. Because if I was counting the other versions, Terry McGinnis would be right up there for me.
Oh, of course.
What about you, Jeremy?
Well, for me, it's definitely be Kevin Conroy. But for the movies, for Joker, I'm actually going to go with Michael Emerson from Dark Knight Returns. because there was
this is just top 3 Batman.
Top 3
Top 3 Batman voice actors. Batman, actual character Batman.
Oh, well, it's got to be Kevin Conroy. Bruce Greenwood. Yeah, you know what? He worked. And then I'm actually going to go with, I think Jeremy Piven voiced at one point.
Not Piven, Sisto.
Sisto, that was it, yeah.
Ugh. All right, so we're going to take another quick break, come back with comics. Finally, on the Comics Podcast. Yay!
Mr. Wayne? Mr. Wayne!
Terry, you're hurt. Just groggy.
Who did this?
It was me.
It isn't human. Destroy it! Way ahead of you. Batmobile. Ignition.
Sorry, pal, but you're history.
Who sent that thing?
It didn't say. Whoever it was. They didn't stop at one.
Seven against 2. Pretty bad odds.
For them.
All right, and you've waited this long to get to a comics discussion on a comic podcast. I know, ladies and gentlemen, but we are celebrating 75 years of Batman. And how this is going to break down is very, very efficiently, I should say. Batman should be proud of me for doing this so efficiently. Where we each started reading the Bat or the Bat family. Jeremy, what was your first Batman story you ever read, whether it was a trade or a single issue or whatever?
Oh, that's easy. It was when I picked up Greatest Batman Stories Ever Told. This was during Batman 89. And the first story that I read was where, I can't remember the title of it, but it had to do with Batman stalking Joe Chill. And Joe Chill is now aged about 20 years. He's become a crime boss. And what happens is that Batman decides that now that he's, Bruce Wayne is now Batman, he goes to Joe Chill's nightclub. And Joe Chill is in his office. Batman breaks in, and Batman starts telling Joe Chill about the Waynes. Batman then removes his cape and cowl and goes, "I'm Batman." And through this comic book montage, Bruce Wayne is telling Joe Chill, because now he's talking as Bruce Wayne, saying, wherever you go, whatever you do, I know you're going to screw up. I'm going to be there to bring you in and bring you in by the book. Joe Chill gets upset, runs out of the club across the street to this cab, and he starts telling this cab driver what happened. Well, it turns out that this cab driver was once a criminal. He takes Joe Chill to a garage and 3 other criminals. They get upset, and they gun Joe Chill down. They get trigger happy, but they're asking Joe Chill who Batman is. Joe Chill is dying. He's about to reveal it. Batman's been following, and he beats up the thugs. Batman then talks to Joe Chill, and Joe says, "You know what? You turned out okay after all." And Joe Chill, of course, then passes away.
What about you, Steve? What was your first Batman story you ever read?
Nightfall.
That's a big event.
Yeah.
That's a spicy meatball.
Very spicy.
Yes. What did you like about it? Just tell us your impressions briefly.
Well, well, for one, it's dark as hell. But I would have to say that the watching Batman getting beat down by Bane's, master plan, more or less, and then having just Batman get his back broken and then having to pass the mantle on, and he doesn't pass it to anybody that's under his tutelage. He just more or less, picks Azrael to take his place, and eventually has to fight to get his mantle back by the end of the whole Master Saga.
Mm.
I loved the whole how it played out.
Awesome. What about you, Doug?
See, damn you, Steve, because that's the same thing that I started picking up. Yeah, just Nightfall for sure. I mean, I remember the big thing when Bane showed up and they started talking about him, and the whole Venom thing just scared the hell out of me, because here's a guy who's skinny and weak, and all of a sudden he gets pumped up, and now he's broken the bat. And just for seeing that, and then of course seeing, Jean-Paul Valley coming out and being Bat Azrael, which I liked it and I didn't. I mean, I kept thinking, oh my God, they're bastardizing Batman, and this is where it's going to go, and it's going to stay this way. And then to finally see that, hey, Batman, Bruce has gotten his back together and he's healed, was absolutely mind-blowing to me, to see him come back and fight for everything.
Absolutely. For me, sadly, Death of the Family, which is a very anticlimactic story, was the first one that I really read cover to cover, issue by issue. There were a few moments in that with, Snyder and Capello on writing and art. Since I've been going back in this 75 Years of Batman Spotlight and reading some of the older books, not necessarily my first exposure to it, but I don't know. I would say that Year One is up there for me. But yeah, my first real, I think most likely next May when we do Batman month again, it's probably gonna have to be Nightfall month, because there was a giant trade paperback that I had as an 8-9-year-old, so somewhere around 88, 89, that had Batman really, really dark, and I don't remember what it was. I don't remember the title. I don't remember who wrote it. I don't remember anything about it. All I know, it was at least 3 or 4 inches thick, and it took me forever as a kid to really read it, and it was super dark. So I'm assuming it was Nightfall. I don't know. Yeah. All right, so these aren't in any particular order, even though I put mine in order, but we're going to talk about our 5 favorite all-time Bat stories. They don't need to be trades or single. It could be a combination of both. What is your, for the lack of a better term, number 5, Steve?
Of favorite trades?
Favorite Bat stories?
I would probably say Death of the Family.
Mm-hmm.
Would be my number 5.
What about you, Jeremy?
Once again, it's a story. I can't remember the title. It was from the greatest Batman stories ever told, where Batman and Alfred are cleaning up the attic. Batman finds out that Thomas Wayne and Martha were at the mayor's costume charity event when Thomas was kidnapped by a local mobster, and Thomas was forced to remove a bullet from the mobster. But of course, Thomas knew that if he did that, then the mobster would have to kill Thomas, because Thomas knew who this mobster was. Thomas is able to botch it and get to the police, and the mobster, of course, vows revenge. He knows that it'll be tied back to him, so that's why he hires Joe Chill, because nobody would expect a common thug to kill the Waynes. Bruce finds out about this. He tries to confront the mobster as Batman, but unfortunately the mobster, during a prison riot, has suffered amnesia. Bruce then goes back to the attic and he finds out that Thomas Wayne at the charity event dressed up as, dun dun dun, a Batman, but the costume is a little bit different. Bruce Wayne puts on the costume. He goes back to the mobster. The mobster's memory is jogged back. The mobster thinks that it's Thomas Wayne coming back from the dead. and the mobsters ran away from Batman, unfortunately, into the street and gets hit by a car and dies. And then finally, Bruce Wayne goes to the Bat computer and goes, "The death of Thomas and Martha Wayne, case closed."
Huh. Interesting. All right. What about you, Doug? Number 5.
Oh, probably. God, that's gonna be hard. I'd probably have to go with Dark Knight Returns. Just because it's coming back. I mean, it's one of my favorites. I liked it. I don't want to have to criticize it. But it was probably the worst out of the 5 that I really liked. So, if that makes any sense. I mean, come on, Batman coming back. Frank Miller did a great job on it.
Yeah, for me in number 5, it's the same. It's Dark Knight Returns. Now, let me make this clear, ladies and gentlemen. These are just our personal, as I said earlier, our 5 favorite all-time Bat stories. If you take the all-time out of there, these are just our favorites. We're not saying these are a countdown or anything like that. For me, Dark Knight Returns, the actual story of Batman being old, not the whole Joker part of it, but just that first part of the story, the first half, I liked it. I thought it was interesting. I hate to say this because I know I'm going to sound like a kid of today's generation. The movie did it so much better.
Oh, it did. It cleaned it up a lot.
And it's mainly because of the art that's what I found out in the first year and year and a half that we're into the pull bag here. I don't like a lot of the older art. I really don't. I prefer the new today style kind of things. Steve, your number 4?
I'd probably say Court of Owls.
Interesting. Doug?
Probably. See, this is tough. I'm going to go with Death in the Family. Or I'm sorry, A Death in the Family.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Sorry.
A Death in the Family was. The book is the actual comic is a lot more twisted than the story we got in Under the Red Hood.
Oh yeah.
Because in the comic, his mother basically betrays him.
Yeah.
Not good. Jeremy, you're number 4?
Well, speaking of Frank Miller, in 2005, he worked on All-Star Batman and Robin. And this was probably the most screwed up comic I ever read. I heard about this. I didn't believe it. But, yeah, it deals with Robin, who watches his parents killed in front of him by hitmen. Now Batman has taken the Batmobile. He's chasing Commissioner Gordon and GCPD. He rams the Batmobile into the GCPD, also a sedan, killing Vicky Vale. She dies from injuries. Batman grabs Robin from the GCPD car and says, "Okay, listen to me, you little retard. You're going to do what I say from now on." He pretty much verbally, emotionally, physically abuses Robin throughout this series. He says, "You've been drafted into a war." So, yeah, it's definitely an interesting read.
And for me, for number 4, Year One. I hate to say it, but the movie did it slightly better. And it's not because of the story from Frank Miller at all. I love the story, but it's the art. Year One, the actual trade paperback actually puts a lot of things in perspective that the movie doesn't, and I did like that. But it's just, I don't know. I just can't get over not being able to get into the old art. All right, Steve, number 3.
Really trying to press me there, aren't you?
Yeah.
I would say Nightfall.
Okay, now I have no idea what your top 2 are going to be. All right, Jeremy, number 3.
For number 3, I'm going to go back to Detective Comics 475 and 476, The Laughing Fish. Yeah, the animated series was interesting, but this was a two-parter in the comics, and this one was a lot darker. Granted, they couldn't kill people in an animated series. Of course, we found out later they did. But my point being is that when Joker, I love the fact how Joker is just like moping around because he's not really trying to poison Gotham this time. He's trying to go legit, but he has to do it his way, and his way of doing it is poisoning the fish to make them smile. But he's now wandering around going like, well, what if people don't like my laughing fish? What if they all want to become vegans or vegetarian? You know, he's just like he doesn't get why people don't want the fish. So it's definitely, as I said, if you go on the Comixology, for $1.99 you can get these issues now. There's definitely a lot more fleshed out than what they did for the animated series episode.
Yeah, before Doug goes, I will bring up our buddy Dave Draper from ToyWorldOrder.com wanted me to bring up Detective Comics 567. It's a story where essentially nothing happens. What about you, Doug? Number 3. Doug.
Sorry.
Doug.
Sorry. My mic was on
Damn
mute.
it, more editing for me. Shit.
All right, so I'm going to have to go with Mad Love for number 3.
Wow.
Just because I love Harley Quinn. The fact that this is all about her and everything that she's done with tricking Batman, basically trying to kill Batman herself without Joker and Joker just getting pissed off about it. That was, I really kind of like that story, and the fact that here it is, and you get to see this twist of how Harley really becomes more of a major character in the series.
Mm-hmm. Number 3 for me, The Court of Owls. The Court of Owls is by far, still to this day, the best work Scott Snyder has done writing Batman in the New 52. It just is. All right, Steve, number 2.
All right. Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker, because they actually show what happens to the Joker.
What happens?
Well, I'm saying
he gets electrocuted.
No, I'm saying the already
aftermath.
dead one that's hanging
Oh, really?
in Arkham,
Oh, wow.
and the tombs of every other Bat villain.
Interesting. All right, Doug, number 2.
Alan Moore's The Killing Joke. I'm going to go with that just because we do see Oracle getting shot, getting paralyzed, Barbara Gordon becoming Oracle. That was probably one of my favorites there, just how everything came together with it.
Mm-hmm. Jeremy, number 2.
It breaks my heart, but Dark Knight Returns is number 2. I love how it's a love letter to the 80s. I love how Batman and Joker come out like aging rock stars who want like one more song. I love the Cabbage Patch Kids, because that was the whole big thing in the 80s. They're making fun of the David Letterman show. They're making fun of Dr. Ruth. They're making fun of pop psychology. They're making fun of the media, how they have to be a lot more hipper. I especially love that moment between Joker and Batman where it's always been controversial. I've always said Batman did break Joker's neck and kill him, and the whole monologue that Joker's giving is just in Batman's mind, because why else would Batman have to destroy the body? Because I'm sure that Batman doesn't want to know the truth. I also love the whole Batman-Superman fight and how it kind of ties into the Cold War about how Batman wants to solve the world's issues and Superman is just acting like a tool for the government. There's a lot of symbolism. They never answer what happened to Arrow, but all in all, it's still a great read.
All right. For me, number 2. Yeah. Everybody just show me a great big smile. Of course, obviously, I can't do the Joker, but the Killing Joke is number 2 for me. Absolutely loved it. Steve and I just did the review in episode 72 of the Pull Bag here inside Batman Month. I just finally was able to read it recently. It was damn interesting. And it gives even more powerful notes to Batgirl in the New 52. It's absolutely amazing how they sneakily kept that in, even though everyone says, oh, it's not in continuity anymore, but it is. All right, number 1. Steve, what is your number 1?
The Dark Knight Returns, mostly because you actually see Batman and Superman fight. Now, I will say that it is very cluttered. It is very difficult to read based on the art and direction that it goes. The animated feature did much, much cleaner and clearer effects to it. I love the translation from that. But having just picked that up about a year and a half ago, I really enjoy it. But to me, it's that whole end part of the book is my favorite. Just the battle of Batman setting up to whoop Superman's ass, and then having Arrow, essentially playing a part in it, because it more or less indicates that Superman cut his arm off.
Mm-hmm.
So he's getting his little revenge, but I don't know. I can't remember right now if it actually showed what happened to him in the comic, but I know in the animated feature he's down in the new Batcave with Batman and his cronies. But I loved it.
Awesome. What about you, Jeremy? Number 1?
Well, I was going to give a tie, but I'm just going to stick with just one solid number 1, and that is The Killing Joke. What else can I say other than I love the opening, how Batman is trying to talk to the Joker and reason with him and say, we don't have to kill each other. How will this all end? And it ends with a joke. And I love the joke where it's like with the flashlight and one inmate says, okay, I'll flash the flashlight, from one building to another and I'll walk across. And the second inmate says, no, I don't trust you because I'm sure after you go across and I start to walk, you're going to turn the flashlight off, and Batman and Joker just start laughing at it. I don't know if it's supposed to mean that, Batman's the one supposed to be holding the flashlight and is going to turn it off, or Joker's going to hold the flashlight and turn it off. I'm not too sure, but there's just something about the artwork. You don't know where the story's going. I love how in Joker's mind, how he's trying to go back what made him the Joker. Because in his mind, he's trying to feed his wife and child, and he gave up his job as a chemist, and now he has to become the Red Hood. And it's like, it's the best line. Sometimes I remember it this way, sometimes I remember it that way, and it's all multiple choice, and one bad day will drive you insane. It's definitely one of the greatest pieces of Bat literature that I ever read, and I just love the cover, where he just holds the camera and goes, smile. So he really does his best to drive Gordon stark raving mad by, what he did to Barbara and other things that he could have done to Barbara. So hands down, yeah, number 1.
Have you guys seen the Megatron homage cover with him holding Reflector in the same way?
No.
I'll have to look for it on Google for you guys. They basically transformerized the Killing Joke. This is very awesome. Number 1 for me. It has to go to my roots with Batman in animation. The current run, 2012 to now, Batman Beyond. First run done by Adam Beechin in writing, and second run done by Kyle Higgins. The only reason why I have it as my number 1 favorite right now is because we all grew up on the animated series, and I love Batman Beyond, and they are the events of the Batman Beyond current series that have taken place since 2 years ago takes place between the events of Return of the Joker and Epilogue. So you have stories in between there that are going on, and between Adam Beecham on writing and then now Kyle Higgins on writing, they are adding so much richness to the DC animated universe. So, yep, that's my number one. We are going to take a quick break. You're going to hear some audio and ads and other stuff. And we're going to come back with one final Blitz topic. And then that'll be it for the Pull Bag episode 75. We'll be back after this.
It's true, Batsy. I know everything. And kind of like the kid who peeks at his Christmas presents, I must admit, it's sadly anticlimactic.
Why is the Joker always going to trip me up, damn it? Stupid fish head wannabe. Anyway, Doug, what is your number one favorite Bat story?
Gotta be Nightfall. That probably because it was the very first one I ever read. It was, I mean, it was just everything thrown together for it. Seeing Bane and Bane just being this evil new guy coming in. I mean, just this villain. It was awesome. Awesome.
All right, and the final topic. I would, Steve, get his timer ready for the Blitz here, but I don't think he has it on him. The final topic here in the Pull Bag, episode 75, Batman pre-New 52 versus post-New 52. 2 points that you like either way, or 2 points that you don't like either way. Okay? Jeremy, you first.
Well, what I like about New 52 is that for someone who wanted to start all over again, it actually is not a bad way to restart the series. I like what they're doing with Harley, as I've said over and over again. I liked the arc of Death of the Family. I like the Detective Comics series. I subscribe to several comics in the New 52. As for Post goes, well, again, I go back to, I guess, Comixology, where I can just search and, I mean, the artwork, for some people, it hasn't aged well. It depends if you were born in that time period, but there is some good writing here and there, but I have to go right now between the both. It's 50-50, but I'm more and more impressed now with what they're doing with New 52. I think the writing is definitely tighter, much more tighter, and I love Gail Simone.
Absolutely. Steve, what about you?
Pre-New 52, I like some of the individual sagas better.
Mm-hmm.
I also like some of the characterizations better. As far as people that have showed up briefly in the New 52. Into the New 52 that I do not like, the damaged continuity, which yes. I have stated time and time again. And then I really enjoy the art.
Yeah. Doug, what about you?
I'm going to take a hit for this. I haven't read anything post New 52, so I really couldn't answer. I'm going to say, hey, pre-52, New 52 is great.
Having read a bit of both, I find that anything that's before 1999, I'm going to have a problem with. Anything from 99 to whenever now is, it's fine with me. I love The Killing Joke, I really do. I loved Nightwing when it was still being published. I'm not too thrilled with what they're going to be doing with Dick Grayson now. Snyder's Batman, like I said earlier, Court of Owls is the best arc so far. I'm interested to see where they go after this, because I've seen several of the solicitations for after the 0-year origin crap. And I love Simone's Batgirl series. That is by far. So I said on the Batgirl Volume 1 coverage here inside the Pull Bag, 75 Years of Batman with Brian Ward and Dr. Andrea Letamendi from the Arkham Sessions. Batgirl by Simone is not just a superhero book. It's a psychological superhero book because it's very, very deep writing and it's absolutely amazing. All right, I think that's going to do it for us here inside the Pull Bag. That's going to do it for this third week of coverage. Coming up next week, we have Court of Owls, City of Owls, and Death of the Family to cap it all off for 75 Years of Batman. For now, I am TFG and Michael with...
Hunter Outcast, Jeremy Fein.
Talking about my generations, Doug Abel.
Steve Megatron Phillips.
All right. We will catch you next time. Make your great escape into comics.
I'm not hearing this.
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, the GCRN's comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you are leaving the message for, and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. Send us an email feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.